Hey everyone. So this is a repository I made a few years ago, 3 years to be exact, I guess. This was intended to be part of a workshop, and I actually did one workshop at one point, but I wanted to share it with you in this kind of video format so we can see what it is all about. And let's check it out. So first, what we want to do is clone the repo. And let's do that here. Cool. Now let's change directories into that recently cloned repository and open it up in code. All right, there's no need for you to use WSL, Windows Subsystem Linux or anything. You could do it directly on your operating system, be that Windows or Mac OS or Linux itself. This is just how I created the environment, because I ran the commands on my terminal there, but it doesn't really matter, or it shouldn't at least, except for one little thing I'm going to be showing you in just a moment. All right, so this is now the repository code, and what you can see here is the README. Let's go through that real quick here. And the main idea of this repository is to provide you with some exercises that you can use to kind of get to the building blocks, as I call them, of Vue and learn a few concepts. Something that I would like you to keep in mind is that this repository is a little bit older, so we are talking about Vue 2, and most of the things that are applicable to Vue 3 are still the same. But there's a few pieces of the environment itself and things like that that are a little bit older that we can change, and I'll be pointing those out as we go for stuff that we can upgrade, right? So anyway, in this particular repository, what we have is some instructions about how to use it, and let me show you. So the first idea here, number 0, is to make sure that you are using at least Node version 12. And for that purpose, what I did was I added this node-version file with just the number 12 here. And the purpose of that is for tools like NVN or N, things like that, AVN. So let me show you real quick here. This AVN activated 12. AVN NVM, this is the package that is part of my Node installation of my Ubuntu system, that it will look for this Node version file and then use that particular version for the repository. So that's why we have that file, and just to make sure we're covering this 0.0 here. That's just because of how the Node environment works and how the dependencies need to have certain versions and things like that. So just to make sure we are on the same page, we're using Node 12 at this point. Cool. It says now to install all the dependencies for the repository, so we can do that. Let's do that right now. In the meantime, I'm going to remove these blame thingies here. There you go, so we don't get distracted by that. And let's see what Prettier is saying here. There's no end to that, right? Cannot find module Prettier. Yeah, that's just because we're still installing stuff here. So there you go. It is available now. I am leaving these parts where I fumble around so you can see a little bit of what it looks like when you're working with these kinds of things. But feel free to, tell me in the comments if that's helpful or not. All right, so a bunch of packages were installed and some vulnerabilities. We'll deal with those later on. I'll show you. But for now, the point right now we want to do is actually get this environment running. So run the unit tests in watch mode, it says basically. So what we're doing here is it's a repository where we have some tests prepared for us, and we want to do remove all the errors, right? So we want every test to pass, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just show you what it looks like. All right. And what we need to do is, but there's a note here. You might come across something. Let's click it really quick here. Problem is with OS X, something about EM file, too many open files when watching. If you come across that, there's some pointers in this issue that you can go through. Since we didn't really have them in this Ubuntu system, there's nothing much I can show you. But yeah, please refer to this page if you encounter any issue regarding that. Okay, so now we also need the actual, application server running. So at one point we are going to have the two of them running. So let me open it up in a new terminal tab here, and let's run the application. All right, this is using vue-cli. This is one of the things I mentioned we could probably upgrade in newer usage of Vue, and how you want to do your stuff for developing and stuff like that is by using Vite, and I can share with you a video of that later on. But I really wanted to share this repository with you, since it took a fair bit of work to make it happen. So yeah, I didn't want that to go to waste. All right, at this point we have the application running. Let me show you the console here with the Vue dev tools. There you go. Let's make that a little bit bigger. All right, so we have 2.612 for our Vue version, and yeah. So now we have our app running. There's not much to it. It's just the one image. And what you can do to see that is go to source and then app.vue. And you will notice that we have this logo here, and that's it, because all of the components here, we'll talk about those later, are commented out, right? So that's why we only see this, no errors, no issues so far. The errors will come from the tests here in a moment. All right, so top terminal is our watchers for the tests, and then bottom view is the application running, bottom terminal is application running. Cool. All right, so let's keep on reading. It says, now that your services are running, find the spec of Hello World and make the test declaration to look like this. So basically we are removing the X at the beginning of the test and making it not ignored. Basically that's the idea. So let's do Hello World spec, and if you need to know where that is, let me show you real quick. That's going to be under tests unit and then Hello World, right? So here we go. Let's remove the X there and bring back the tests output. There you go. So this is what we want to see. We successfully failed. And the idea here is then to, let's go back to the README and get into the Hello World component and implement the proper code according to the instructions found in the comments of the file. Then go to localhost 8080. In our case, application is running on 8081 here, you can see. And there we will find the app running. Yeah, so we did that already. We just need to go into Hello World, fix the code there according to the comments, and go back to see the output of the tests. So let's do that. I'm going to leave this open for now, and let's go back to Hello World, and as you can see here is source and then components, right? I'm going to close everything else, And let's read the comments here. It says, we want to show the value from the input within this curly thingy's name. So the idea is this is a variable and we are interpolating its value. That's how you call it technically, I guess. And we want this string, this little message to appear whenever we update this input. That's basically what we're saying. We're missing the view directive, which will bind the value of the input to the name variable. So we have a name variable. This is what we're trying to render here. And we need to get a hold of that. Problem is, we don't have it right now. Let me add a... There you go. So let's also declare a reactive name variable and set it an initial state of world. All right. So let's do that. Name, and then I can't spell world. Okay, cool. We are having issues with, the linter here. Let's just obey our Lord, the computer editor thing. Anyways, so let's go back. This is not quite as important right now. What we need to do is check that the tests here are passing. So now that we have this name reactive variable, and as you can see here is an object which is returned from the data method on the default object that we are exporting for this particular single file component. We are now declaring this reactive variable, right? And name now is going to appear here. One thing we need to do is go back to app.vue and uncomment this section here, hello world, which was being imported here from its appropriate file. What we're doing is bringing in the single file component, naming it hello world, installing it, registering the component within the main app component, and then rendering it through its tag here, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But this is, a part of how you do things in Vue. At least in Vue 2, there's a few other things that we can do now these days, but this is what you would find basically on a Vue 2 repository, a code base, right? Cool. So what we want to do now is make sure that this is passing. And as you can tell right now, it isn't. So if I add my name here, it won't show up. And that's not good. What we want, like we say here, is to show the value from the input and then render it here. And nothing in here right now is telling, in here, the input is telling Vue, hey, use this part here to update the variable name, right? So what we want to do is to add a directive. And in this case, we need vmodel. Every directive in Vue starts with v dash. This is how you tell the framework, hey, I'm going to be using something special for this DOM element, right? And vmodel require, as you can tell in the error here, require that attribute value. So what we want to do is put the name variable here, which this is going to be the same as here, which is the same in here. So name, the reactive variable, is going to be bound to this input here, and at the same time will be rendered up top on this div, right? So let's change now that to be Axel, and you can tell that this is working. Yay! All right, so let's make it a little bit bigger, maybe that helps a little, as well as our DevTools. So if you are on a phone, you can see a little bit better maybe if we do that. Cool. nothing much to see here. Maybe probably this part where we are saying, okay, this is hello world. You can see how it highlights my component. My component is that particular piece of the DOM, and then we can have data on the right here where it says your name is yay. DevTools also allow you to update that value. So if I do this, then you can see that happening, right? Alrighty. So important part is here that we actually are passing the tests now, and this is because the code that we wrote is doing the thing that the test expected from us, right? So this is basically how you use the repository. You go through, let's watch now here, and let's try now with another test. Let's see computed properties. And we'll see that we need to go into the spec and then enable the tests there. There was probably some other more practical way of doing this, but you know. All right, so we now want to practice computed properties. What we want to do is go into computed properties.vue and then check out the code. So as you can tell here, when I uncommented the computed properties component in app.vue, when I did this part here, now it's yellowish. Now the component is being rendered. So hello world is up top and then computed properties is here. So if I start trying to do stuff with this, it will interact with my input. What we want to do is read this first and then try to do the actual exercise. It says, there you go. Okay, sorry about that. We are now looking at the computed properties and saying, here's an example of how you could implement the reversal of the string you provide directly on the input. So if we take username, remember that we have username should be a reactive variable, which is right here. So remember that data return object with all of our reactive variables. So we have the username that is reacting to that because we have the v model, just like in our previous example. What we want to do is reverse it, right? So this is how we do it directly on the template. But now we want to have a computed property. And what these do is they are properties that depend on some other values and that update their value whenever that dependency changes, basically. So we want to do the same, but in a computed property so that the templates aren't so busy, aren't so, you know, complicated to maintain and debug and things like that. So we start here and we need to add an interpolation here to render the computed property reversed. So let's add an interpolation. That's what these mustaches do. And then do reverse. All right. I didn't like my space there. So we are interpolating reversed now. And let's try now. All right, nothing happened. And that happened because we don't have that reversed property here. So if we go to our component down here, let's go like that. And if we go to component properties, or sorry, computed properties component, and we check out we have data and we have computed, but there's no reversed computed property, right? Oh, there's a typo there. All right, so let's create that computed property. and we go here, declare the reversed computed property. Here, it should reverse the characters in the string provided from the input above. So yeah, so we want reversed, and computed properties are actually declared like this, like methods, basically. And I was saying that they depend on something. So what we can do is we can return this dot username dot, what do we do on the template? We split it and then we reverse it and then we join it again. This is basically the same implementation that we have for, okay, my editor doesn't like those, I think. All right, something like that. And we're missing a semicolon here. All right, let's go back to the tests now, open it up and see if we are anywhere near completing that part. Okay, so instead of 3 failed and 1 passed, we have now, here we have now 3 passed and 1 failed. We're just missing one piece of our solution here, right? So let's just try this again. All right, and it's doing the same. The difference now is that up top here, what we're doing is we are reversing the string directly on the template. And over here, we are reversing the string on a computed property. So if we try to go here to see what the reversed computed property does, is basically depend on username. Whenever this changes, the reversed property will be calculated again and then pushed, I guess, to the UI, right? So it's going to be rendered again. Cool. In Vue 2, we have this mutating data gotcha. The problem here is that the original array is mutated whenever we are trying to do anything with it, right? So let's go see. My food is an array, and when we try to calculate my reversed food, we want to see what that looks like, right? So let's go check out food. My food is banana, tomato, kiwi, and avocado. And when we try to render it again, you see that we are changing the order of those fruits over here, right? So if we wanted to reverse the food but keep the original array, we need to do something special, a little bit. And that's how we do it here. And it says array reversed without mutating the original one. That's what we need to figure out at this point, right? So we have these different thingies for our original beverages. And we want now my reversed beverages computed property that doesn't mutate the reactive beverages property. All right. So this is going to be an interesting one. Let's see. If we were to return this dot my beverages dot reverse, it's basically doing the exact same thing as we are doing with the fruits, right? So it's taking the resulting property, computed property, and it's mutating the original one. And we don't always want that. This could be potentially an issue. So we can see here now the error is we expected the order to be different than what we have right now. So how do we keep the original property, my beverages, unchanged? Well, something you could do really quick is maybe spread your original data, your array in this case. And if you spread it, then you are creating a new instance of your data that then you can reverse. And at that point, we pass all our tests and we keep the original array. And we also give you the new mutated or the new reversed result. Once more, you can probably tell here, let's make that a little bit bigger. You can tell here that on the computed properties component, so that will be this component that we are looking at right now here. All of this is the component which is rendered in the app.vue via this tag because we imported it and named it and then basically registered it within the component's special property of the app object, that we have now the my beverages array in the same order that we wanted it, the my food, which is the fruits, as well as the reversed beverages and the reversed food, which is yet another array. So yeah, hopefully this gives a little bit of help as to how to do the tests, the different pieces of building blocks, like I want to call them, for Vue. If you want me to go through the rest of them, please let me know in the comments. I wouldn't really mind making the video for the rest of them, but at this point I only wanted to show you how to use the repository. Hopefully it helps, even if it's just to get a hold of the actual folder structure and the little tests that we have here. In some cases we are looking for specific code that needs to be written in a certain way. There wasn't really any other way around that, but I think the testing library is a great way to do it, and maybe it also gives you some ideas for creating your own tests. Alrighty. Finally, let's go real quick through these errors and see if there's something that we can actually fix. It's probably that these came after, or rather while we were working on our application. I'm just going to refresh the page and you can see that, yep, exactly, the errors are gone. So those errors will probably also help you in the case that you are building, the solutions for the different exercises on the different concepts. But that's it. I think we made it through the end. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you can share this with other people who you think it's going to be useful for. And catch you on the next one. Take care.